I'm deeply saddened to tell you that our investigation and evidence leads us to believe that 4-year-old Jamaria Harris is deceased. It's the outcome that we all feared, and sadly, it's the outcome that we must face. We'll have to face it together as a community. Sadly, the night of the 911 call on June 30th, when that call was made, it was already too late to save Jamaria. At this time, our investigation supports that she had been deceased.
The mother, Michala Herring, told the same story. She was watching Ja play in the yard. The girl wandered off. No one saw her leave. No one heard anything. On its surface, a tragic missing child case.
Hey.
What you want to say about the baby?
J-Time, baby.
That is the voice of 4-year-old Jamaria Harris, a little girl who police claim is now dead. Her parents...
The story was simple. A child wandered away. A frantic mother called for help. A father rushed back to the house. A community mobilized. That was the official account. But the investigation that unfolded in the days after the 911 call tells a different story. The sheriff's office did not treat this as a random disappearance. They treated it as a crime scene from the very beginning. Because when they started looking at the evidence, they realized something immediately. Nothing about the parents' story matched what they were finding. Text messages, financial records, phone pings. The timeline that the parents gave investigators began to fracture almost immediately. The father's immediately. 3 stores, a washing machine repair, a phone without service, became a roadmap for prosecutors to check every single detail. And when they did, the gaps started showing.
This is an absolutely stomach-churning, horrifying story out of South Carolina. And it is one that has now taken a devastating turn. I wish it wasn't the case, but this is what law enforcement is saying. A 4-year-old little girl, Jamaria Harris, was reported missing after, according to her family, she wandered away from the front yard of her home. Hundreds of people joined this search, deputies, helicopters, drones, canines, everyone hoping that she'd be found alive. But now, investigators claim that's never going to.
Both have been charged with homicide by child abuse. The mother also faces an additional charge, filing a false police report. But the investigation is far from over. The body hasn't been found, and that raises the central question that will define this entire prosecution. If there's no body, what is the evidence? And what happened during that month when no one was looking? Before any charges were filed.
According to the Aiken County Sheriff's Office, Jamaria had already been dead for at least a month before anyone called 911 to report her missing. Her parents, Michala Herring and Jamaria Harris, are now charged with homicide by child abuse. And Herring is also charged with filing a false police report. But here's what makes this case so unusual.
The 911 call came in on June 30th at 8:15 p.m., a mother reporting her 4-year-old daughter missing. The story was simple. Jamaria Harris had been playing in the front yard near a chicken coop. She wandered off. And just like that, hundreds of personnel mobilized. Deputies, helicopters, drones, canines. The FBI joined the search. For days, the community held on to hope. Neighbors searched fields, checked drainage ditches, passed out flyers. The father, Jamaria Harris, even gave an interview to a local station while the search was still active. He told the reporter he had left the house around 7 that morning, went to 3 stores, came back to see police everywhere. His girlfriend, he said, had no service on her phone. She couldn't call him. So she called 911.
Haven't found this little girl, which, as we'll get into, could present a challenge. But now the question becomes, how can authorities definitively say she's been dead for weeks if they haven't recovered her body? How do they know for sure? What evidence led them to file these homicide charges? What do police...
How do police know a child is dead without finding the child? How do they know she was gone for 30 days before anyone reported it? The parents are now in custody.
On June 30th at around 8:15 p.m., Aiken County deputies received a 911 call. Mother reported her 4-year-old daughter missing, saying Jamaria was playing at the front yard near a chicken coop when she mysteriously wandered off. And just like that, a massive search gets underway. I'm talking more than 200 personnel on the ground, helicopters.
Then, on July 4th, the search was abruptly scaled back. Sheriff Sawyer walked to the podium and made the hardest announcement of his 36-year career. He didn't say they found a body. He said they believe she is deceased. And then he added the detail that changed everything. She had been dead for at least a month before that 911 call was ever made.
And then sadly, something shifts. The search is scaled back. And on July 4th, Aiken County Sheriff Marty Sawyer called a press conference to deliver what he says was the hardest announcement he's ever had to make.
He told the press they're still searching an area of interest. Not in Aiken County, somewhere else. Which means they know where to look. And they know the body may not be anywhere near the home.
Our search for Jamaria drives on. We are continuing to put massive law enforcement resources to work to recover Jamaria and bring her home.
The sheriff is holding his cards close.
We are currently searching an area of interest right now, not in Aiken County. Additional charges may be.
The sheriff is holding his cards close.
Ms. Herring, you've been charged with homicide by child abuse. Do you understand that charge?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand that if convicted, it carries up 20 years to life in prison? Do you
Yes.
understand that? You've also been charged with filing false police report of a felony violation. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
It carries up to 5 years in prison or a $5,000 fine. Do you understand that?
The mother was told her charges carry up to 20 years to life. She understood.
Filing false police report of the felony violation, that bond would have been set for $5,000, but because it's connected to the homicide charge, I'm going to deny.
The false report charge, normally a $5,000 bond, was denied because it's connected to the homicide. They are not getting out of this easily. But here's the deeper problem for prosecutors. No body.
Homicide by child abuse, which carries a prison sentence, if convicted, of 20 years to life. Do you understand that?
The father was told the same. But because the charges are so severe, potential life sentences, the magistrate judge could not set bond. Only a circuit court judge has the authority to do that. So both parents sit in custody, waiting for a hearing that could come within 30 days. The judge made one thing clear.
That law enforcement can say, we believe she's dead without the body. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is strange, but it's in South Carolina, you do not need a body to prove a homicide. You need evidence. And the sheriff, he went on TV during that press conference and announced that they have shifted their investigation towards a homicide versus a missing person because they believe there's evidence that leads to the parents being the culprits of homicide by child abuse here. And it's a
South Carolina law says you do not need a body to prove a homicide. You need evidence. And the sheriff clearly believes they have enough. But the defense is going to hammer that point. Where is the body? What was the cause of death? How can you definitively say she died from abuse when you can't examine the remains? That is an evidentiary hurdle. It's not impossible to overcome. Circumstantial evidence, text messages, video, forensic data, witness statements can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt.
It's an evidentiary hurdle. One of the questions the jurors are going to want to know is, where is the body? And that's something that the defense will try to highlight in their representation of the accused here. So it makes it more difficult for the state to prove, but it's not impossible for them to prove. It can be done by circumstantial evidence, and likely they have a lot of that here, unfortunately.
Because the idea is you wouldn't be able to determine cause of death, right?
But it gives the defense room to argue reasonable doubt. And in a case where two parents are charged, there's another dynamic. One of them may point the finger at the other. The mother made the 911 call. The father has an alibi. Who did what? Who knew what? And when did they know it? The sheriff said it himself. The hardest announcement he's ever made. But he also said something else. Our search for Ja drives on. We are continuing to put massive law enforcement resources to work to recover Jai and bring her home. They're not just investigating a crime. They're looking for a little girl who deserves to be found, not just for the case, but for the community, for the family, for closure. Here's what we know for sure. On June 30th, a mother told police her child had just vanished from the front yard. On July 4th, the sheriff said that child had been dead for at least a month. The gap between those two statements is the entire story. The mother slems the father over child abuse case. She had been deceased for at least a month. A month is 30 days. 30 days without a report. 30 days without a search. 30 days where the story everyone was told was a lie. Sheriff Sawyer said the announcement was the hardest of his career. He's been in law enforcement for 36 years. He's seen things, and yet this one broke him. The community wanted to find her alive. The sheriff wanted to find her alive. Everyone prayed for a different outcome, but the evidence said something else. And that's the tragedy of this case. The evidence was there. The parents were there, and the story they told was never going to hold. For a deeper dive, go pull the Aiken County Sheriff's Office press release from July 4th. Read the full statement, then go to the bond hearing transcript. Look at what the magistrate judge said about the charges, and ask yourself this. If the evidence is strong enough to charge both parents with homicide without a body, what did they find? Tell us in the comments. If you found this breakdown valuable, like this video, share it with someone who needs to see the evidence for themselves. Subscribe to Project Cold Case, and turn on notifications so you never miss when we follow the truth.
By the way, the sheriff also hinted at these arrests and that maybe more could be coming. Maybe. I want to take a listen.
We've arrested her dad, 23-year-old Jamaria Harris.
The sheriff hinted at more charges. Additional arrests could be forthcoming. And if the evidence allows a grand jury to upgrade the charges, this case could shift dramatically. If the state can prove intent, if they can show this wasn't neglect, but deliberate action, the death penalty becomes a possibility. South Carolina has the death penalty for murder. And these charges, right now, are just the beginning.
That she had given birth to another child, but we're not sure if investigators believe that birth had anything to do with the timing of this missing child report. But that's a development. That's a significant development too.
Yeah, it is a significant development that she's a mother and she had another child and she's currently sitting behind bars with.
The mother gave birth to another child. Authorities confirmed that in the press conference, but they wouldn't say whether the timing of that birth had any connection to when Jay was last seen alive. That's a significant development, because a newborn means there were other children in that home, and when a child is harmed, Department of Social Services gets involved. DSS can temporarily remove other children from custody, which means there are siblings, possibly, who are now in state care while their parents sit in jail. And then there's the video.
Very specific about what he was doing. He said a few stores here and there. I mean, there's some parts that could be dissected, whatever the reason for.